Hey, what's up, life designers? Welcome to Intentional Tuesdays. This week we are going to be talking about how we can take our past experiences. We all come to our lives with a rich set of past experiences. How can we tap into those experiences in order to make better decisions today and in order to design a better future for ourselves? That's what we are going to be talking about today. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stick with us because we are going to jump right in. So first I want to talk about some of the challenges. Why is it so difficult to simply look to our past in order to inform our present? Part of the challenge is that we tend to only do this when it comes to massive decisions. we usually only reflect and really kind of second guess ourselves when we are faced with a big decision. Should I make this massive financial investment? Should I quit my job? Should I take this new job that just fell into my lap? Should I marry this person? When it comes to large decisions, that tends to be when we really look to our past in order to try to make a better decision today. Now, part of the problem with this is that we are very likely to misremember the past. Our brains are not very good at recalling that type of detail. You've got this problem that you're trying to solve today and you think back to when you made a similar decision in your past. It's highly unlikely that you are going to remember all of the circumstances, all of the nuances, the complexities that were going on back then. It's just not going to be something that you're going to be able to effectively pull forward. You are simply going to have a very biased view of what was going on back then, and you're going to allow that biased view to affect your current decision making. One of the most common biases that we tend to bring to the table is this focus on outcomes. Humans are very outcome focused creatures, particularly humans who watch videos like this one, people who are interested in self-development. We tend to focus a lot on how did the results turn out. The problem with that, when you're thinking about it in the context of looking at past decisions, is the outcomes that you got from those past decisions were largely out of your control. And this is always the case when we're making complex decisions. The ultimate results are going to be borne out over time. And those ultimate results are going to be impacted by numerous factors that are outside of our control. Yet when we think back to the past and the decisions that we've made in the past, our brains remember the outcomes. And it's almost a short circuit in the wiring that will basically reconstruct your memory to say, oh, you made decision X in the past and you got outcome Y. Or you made decision A and you got outcome B. The problem is those two things are not nearly as correlated as your brain would like you to believe that they are. So what will ultimately happen is you will find yourself second guessing yourself in the present. You'll be looking to the past and you'll say, oh, I changed jobs that one time and it turned out I hated that new job. Or I didn't make that investment and it turns out had I made that investment, I would have made a killing. All of a sudden, you're now second guessing your ability to make good decisions. And the reality is that's just not true. There were way more factors. It wasn't necessarily bad decision making. It was simply a bad outcome. And there is a difference, and that's the difference that we need to be able to tease out if we hope to be able to use our past in order to make better decisions in the future. So how do we go about doing this? One technique, one approach that I recommend we do is to make this a daily practice. I mentioned earlier that the only time we ever look to the past in order to inform our present is when we're faced with a massive decision. That is flawed thinking. We really should be looking to our past on a much more regular basis. We really should be seeking to do this type of evaluation. The military would call this an after-action review. We should be doing this regularly so the memories are really fresh in our mind. So don't wait for a massive decision. Do this on a daily basis. constantly be reflecting on the decisions that you're making every day so you can learn those lessons daily, and then you have real solid current data when it comes time to make any decision, whether it be big or small. For our purposes, in order to make this a daily practice, we want to be focusing on small actions, small things, and then evaluating those. So the best place to start is with simple conversations. We have conversations daily, numerous conversations throughout the day. Most of us probably have 15 or 20 different conversations throughout the day. Each and every one of those conversations is an opportunity to reflect on how you did. How did you engage in that conversation? And to learn some lessons that you can then pull forward into your future conversations. So the key here is to think of conversations as something worthy of your attention. Even the small conversations, even the barista at Starbucks, that conversation is worthy of an after action review in order to learn some interesting lessons that you might be able to apply down the road. Another technique is to focus on the process instead of focusing purely on the outcome. We've already talked a little bit about the outcome bias, but the way that you overcome that in conversations, for example, is to focus on the process of the conversation, because the process, the way that you show up, is entirely within your control. So I'll give you some examples just to make this more concrete. Suppose you are using this after action process to evaluate all of your conversation. What are the attributes or the behaviors that if you do, that means you are showing up well, you're showing up skillfully to that conversation? So for example, it might mean things like, I'm at my best in conversation when I listen deeply to the other person. I'm at my best in conversations when I let the other person speak first. You have your own set of rules that you can come up with about when you are at your best in a conversation. You want to think about these things before the conversation. So that way, after the conversation, you can hold yourself accountable to the things that you've already identified up front. It's really hard to do all of this in the moment. If you're already in the conversation, it would be really hard for you to think about all these things. That's why you want to think about them up front. And that will make your after action process that much easier. So that's what I mean by focusing on the process rather than the outcome. So the next step, after you've actually taken action, in this case after you've had a conversation, the next step is to simply evaluate, how did I do? Now I already mentioned you're going to have this list of when I'm at my best type statements, and you're going to recognize how well you did. What you want to do is you want to keep your evaluation mechanism really, really simple. And I recommend you simply ask yourself, what would I do again? And what would I stop doing? So what worked well that I want to keep doing, and what didn't work so well that I want to stop doing? And just keep it that simple. Keep it in a plus minus type of a structure. That way you can keep it really focused, and you can keep yourself from getting down a path of being overly judgmental to yourself, because you're going to be identifying things that you want to stop doing, and you're going to be identifying things that you did well that you're going to keep doing. So now we have been focusing on conversations and really trying to evaluate each and every conversation in order to improve our ability to engage in good conversation. But this concept, this after action concept, can be applied to any aspect of your life. It can be applied to any decision making that you have to do. It can be applied to any aspect of your life that you are hoping to make a change. So that's it for this week's Intentional Tuesdays. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it. And as always, I appreciate your time and your attention. And I look forward to our paths crossing again in the not too distant future. Until that day, I wish you a prosperous journey and all the best. Take care.